Welcome to Powerless Penguins United Big Book Main Share. This week I'm pleased to introduce Mags D, who has kindly agreed to come and share for us. Mags, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mags. I'm an alcoholic. Grateful to be here this morning with everybody. Hope you have had a good week since last week. Pondering the piece where we left off, which was on page 10. So if you've got your big book in front of you, please refer to that. It is a big book study, so that may be helpful. And if you haven't got a big book, then someone will provide you with one, and you can sit back and listen to what we're going to go through today, which is, I don't know, other than read the pages of the book that are presented, and I'll talk to you about what's given to me in that moment. It's so important for me that when I'm with sponsees or attending meetings that I'm setting aside every single thing I think I know about the program, about myself, about what's going to keep me sober, so that I may have a new experience with this power that is greater than me, which I call God because it's just easier to refer to it as God in this forum. And yeah, so I heard before the meeting there's a couple of people that are returning, there's a couple of people that are new. We're in the part of the book now where today, specifically, we are going to talk about the God thing. We're only in step 1 within the book, but within Bill's story, we are now moving into his step 2 experience. And I love the way that the architecture, if you like, of the book, especially Bill's story, which is his personal story, like the personal stories that we're all reading at the back of the book that begin on page 171. I know those that are participating in this are reading one personal story a week, and what the instruction is from the last paragraph in the preface is, did I think like that? You're identifying with, did I think like that? Did I drink like that? Did I feel like that? And at the end of the story, do you think this program could work for you too? So within Bill's story, up to this week, we've spent a lot of time in his step 1 experience. The first half of Bill's story, page 1 to 8, is his step 1 experience, the progression of his illness physically, mentally. He started to move into the fact where he's admitted that he is powerless. Abby Thatcher has arrived at his kitchen table, sharing his experience as to how he has recovered, and a conversation has ensued over the course of page 8 and 9 about Abby's experience. And they are talking about this God thing, this higher power. So many words for God, which I'm going to point out as we go through these pages. So yeah, we're right at the bottom paragraph, so let's get stuck in. And there was something else that was put into my mind, but now I can't remember. Hopefully it'll come back as we go through. So as you know, I go through this line by line, word for word. And yeah, let's set aside every single thing we think we know about this stuff. So with ministers and the world's religions, I parted right there. When they talked of a God personal to me, get this, and think about these words. So he's saying here that when people, ministers, people of the church, organized religions, when people talk to him about that sort of thing, he parted right there. He didn't want to think about it any longer. But when they talked of a God personal to me, remember in this program, it is not a religious program. It's not about the ministers at this stage. It's not about organized religion. This is a spiritual program. When people talk to me about a God that is personal to me, I keep emphasizing it, a God of your own understanding, who was love, superhuman strength, and direction. I keep irritated, and my mind snaps shut against such a theory. What he's talking about here is the prejudices that are within him. people are describing to him this amazing, endless, changeless, limitless love that gives us superhuman strength and direction. But because of his old ideas, his prejudice, his doubt, his mind is snapping shut against such a theory. The prejudices are within us. So set aside every single thing you think you know right now to have this new experience with God. And we're only in Bill's story. We're going to get to underneath all of that prejudice and your old ideas and your fixed ideas. But this is an insight as to how the program is working. We're in his step 2 experience. And this is the experience that you will have as you go through the steps with your sponsor. To Christ. Don't be put off by the word Christ. It's just another word for God. This isn't a Christian program. Some people choose to go down the Christian route. Absolutely brilliant. Knock yourself out. Enjoy it. But it may not be the God of your own understanding, and that's okay. But here, they're referring to another word for God. To Christ, I conceded the certainty of a great man, not too closely followed by those who claimed him. His moral teaching, most excellent. For myself, I had adopted those parts which seemed convenient and not too difficult. The rest I disregarded. That's a really, really important line. You may be part of a religious body right now. You may be practicing some things right now in relation to, that choice you've made for your, for your prayer, meditation, or whatever it be. And you may have adopted those parts of that practice that seem convenient and not too difficult, but the rest you're disregarding. So when I came into the fellowship, I was brought up in a particular religion. There was parts of that I liked to do, and the other stuff I disregarded. There was parts of that religion that I agreed with, and there was parts that I didn't. The rest I disregarded. So essentially, I wasn't practicing anything. And the same applies to these steps. You may be sitting in this room thinking, and let me tell you, I get this all the time with my sponsees. I'll get through step 1. That'll be okay. Because if I have a great step 1 experience, that's going to lead me on to great things. See the step 2 thing? Whatever. Step 3, I'll make the decision. Kind of. Step 4, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not really going to be thorough. I'll just tell the sponsor what I think they need to hear. And then when I get into 5, I'll just admit the things that I think I need to admit, because the rest of it will all get sorted out. There's no point in them knowing everything about my life, even though that's the instruction. Then 6 and 7, there's only 2 wee paragraphs in 6 and 7 in the book, so they can't be that important. So I'll just skip over them. And then into 8 and 9, direct amends to all of the people making that list. If I get about 10 of them done, I'll be grand. And then I'll move on to 10, 11 and 12, because that seems to be what everybody talks about. I love to do 10, watching myself every single day. Sure, that's great, but not doing anything about the stuff that I'm watching. I'll do step 11 because I love a bit of prayer and meditation, love to sit in silence, but I listen to what is being given to me through the power. And then step 12, I'll host a meeting, I'll co-host a meeting, I'll share maybe at a meeting, but see that sponsorship stuff? Not so sure about that. That's what people do with the program. They adopt the parts which seem convenient for them and not too difficult, and the rest they disregard. And then they wonder why they relapse. Then they wonder why they can't stop using and they can't stop drinking. You cannot pick the parts of this program that are convenient for you and the bits that are not too difficult for you and disregard the rest. If you're sitting in the room and you think that you can, think again. Set aside every single thing you think you know to have this new experience with God. I cannot emphasize that enough. It's important to point that out at this stage in the game. This next paragraph could be applied to today. Really and truly, it could be. But again, set aside your prejudice and your old ideas and your fixed ideas about this world today. So the wars which had been fought, the burnings and chicanery. Chicanery means the trickery that religious dispute had facilitated made me sick. How many of you are sitting in this room thinking, oh, everything that's going on in the world, how could there be a God? Because all of this wouldn't be happening. All of these wars and whatever, set it aside. I honestly doubted whether on balance the religions of mankind had done any good. Judging from what I've seen in Europe and since, the power of God in human affairs was negligible. The brotherhood of man, capitalized, the brotherhood of God. Another word for God, the brotherhood of man, a grim jest. It's a joke. If there was a devil, notice that that's capitalized. He seemed the boss universal, capitalized, another word for God, and he certainly had me. The reality of it is there are people on this planet who believe in the devil, who is their God. Really and truly, that's just the way things are in this world. Choose the word, the God of your own understanding. What do these terms mean to you? Again, it's talking about his doubt and prejudice. He's looking at the organized religions. He's saying that these organized religions are not doing anything for him. And that's okay. It's making him question his current position. He's seeing Abby Thatcher sitting in front of him at his kitchen table. He's wondering, how has this happened to him? And he's querying his own position. But here's the thing. My friend sat before me and he made the point blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. I can sit here now across this little kitchen table in Belfast and tell you that God is doing for me right now what I cannot do for myself. Of my own power, of my own self-will, I do not have the ability to show up here every Saturday. Of myself, I do not have the confidence to do what I'm doing every Saturday morning. I genuinely don't. The superhuman strength and direction that I'm given from this power that is greater than me, that it talks about in step 10, the endless, changeless, limitless love that the God of my understanding gives me the confidence to show up with you guys. I am not here of my own power. I do not live my life of my own power. My power comes from something so mega, so powerful that I can't even describe it. Like, think about this. If my friend Stephanie and I were having a conversation, Stephanie worked with me on this one, and I said, both of us were in a park and we're walking along and we see a beautiful, array of roses, and each of us would go to a different colour rose and we'd each smell that rose. Each of us would have the experience of the scent of the rose. Both of us know what that is, but I wouldn't be able to articulate to Stephanie what the scent of a rose is. I wouldn't be able necessarily to describe it. And the same might apply to Stephanie too. We'd both have our own experience of it, the different colour. It might be a slightly different scent depending on the name of the rose or whatever. But we're experiencing the same flower. We're experiencing the same scent. But I can't articulate the same that Stephanie articulates. And the same applies to the power that is greater than you, the God of your own understanding. Think about that. Because it doesn't matter what Stephanie's experience is of the scent of the rose. It doesn't matter what my experience is of the scent of the rose. We both experience something so beautiful. That's the beauty of this program. That's the beauty of the power. That's what is given to you if you do this work. So God was doing for him what he could not do for himself, and he's definitely doing for me what I cannot do for myself this morning. His human will had failed. Here they're talking about the fact that Abby and Bill are powerless. They're saying we're powerless. We're powerless physically, we're powerless mentally, their lives have become unmanageable. Doctors had pronounced him incurable. Doctors, counsellors, addiction services, rehab facilities all told me that what I have is incurable. I have a progressive illness. It gets worse, never better. We are never cured. This is true. Society was about to lock him up. That's what happened with me. Like myself, he admitted complete defeat. He had admitted he was powerless, that his life had become unmanageable. But get this, in the admittance of the powerlessness, when you get to that point of pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, which it talks about later in step 1, this is what happens. Then he had, in effect, been raised from the dead, suddenly taken from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best he had ever known. That's what happens in this program. I heard somebody before the meeting, they said that they had they'd had a relapse. They used a word before that to express the extent of their relapse. It doesn't matter. It was a relapse. But in that relapse, the extent to what they were describing is that they may have got to the point where, boom, this is going to happen. Pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, boom, you admit you're powerless, something else happens. That floored me. It began to look as though religious people were right after all. Remember that Ebby came through the Oxford groups. They were very much based in Christianity, organised religion, set all of that aside and to have your own experience with God. But here's the thing. I love this line and it's so important to emphasize it. Here was something at work in a human heart. Remember at the beginning when we were in the forward to the second edition, I suggested that you put a circle around the word malady. Malady meaning back in the day when the book was written that if you went to a doctor, they would often diagnose people with, a condition of the heart. You have a malady, that's a condition of the heart. And I'll point out the word heart to you the whole way through this book study. Here was something at work in a human heart, which had done the impossible. My ideas about miracles were drastically revised right then. Never mind the musty past. Here sat a miracle directly across the kitchen table. He shouted great tidings. Like, I'm here. And it's not about me. There's how many? There's 55 people on this meeting. The biggest majority of them here have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body. They are here to shout great tidings. We are here to carry a message of the solution. We are here, never mind our musty past. Here sits across your kitchen table, across your living room, across wherever on earth you're sitting on this planet. A miracle can happen in your life. Every single one of us here who have recovered from a hopeless state of mind and body, it's a miracle that we have no longer any problem with the things that we used to use in alcohol. And I have to emphasize this. This is the reality of what has happened to me. A very, very, very short drunkalogue. I drank it nearly every single day for nearly 30 years, and now I don't, because of this program of action, because of what I do every single day. Now you're not telling me that that's not a miracle. Because what other word can describe that? And so it goes on. We go into the most beautiful part of the book here. Remember these pages. I saw that my friend was much more than inwardly important word. Inwardly reorganized. This is not about the external. This is not about everybody around you. This is not about your job, your car, your holidays, your home. It's not all about the external. And all of the external gets rectified when you have this way of living, don't get me wrong. But what needs to happen, first of all, is that we become inwardly reorganized. He was on a different footing. His roots grasped a new soil. There's a little story that I tell with sponsees at this time. Notice that my book is closed now. For anybody that's on Zoom right now, my book is closed. This is not in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I must make that really clear. But in order to describe this roots grasping a new soil, inwardly reorganized, I always share this just a little example. If you think about a tree grows up in a forest. It grows up tall, 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 because it's a tree and that's what it's supposed to do. It's been given a purpose by this power that is greater than us. But us little human beings come along and think, do you know what? That beautiful tree growing in that forest, I'm going to do something about it to make it better. So we start to carve into the tree trunk. You know, like a totem pole, create loads of little faces on it and create lovely little designs and all of that. And then all of a sudden a little storm comes, and the tree that we've carved into to make it more beautiful, to create it in the image that we wanted it to be, okay, a storm comes. And because we've chipped into that tree, the trunk has weakened. And as the wind comes and the storm blows, because of the weakness, the tree starts to shake from side to side. And because it's moving from side to side, the roots get weak because the roots are being pulled up. Okay. And all of a sudden, through trying to make this tree something else that it hasn't been made for, the tree folds over. The roots have not been able to grasp the soil. And the same applies in our life. I was brought to this planet, and for whatever reason, I chipped away at myself, trying to create myself to be something that I thought you needed me to be. A chameleon. Whatever room I went into, I changed my personality to fit with what I thought you needed me to be. I thought I needed to be the perfect daughter. Of course I did, but the way that I went about doing that was my own self-will. I thought I had to be successful in business. I thought I had to learn loads of money. I thought externally I needed to look a particular way. I contorted myself to become something that in actual fact I was never meant to be. And all the while I was terrified, trying to keep this image up, trying to keep all of this up, and all the while terrified. And what did I do? I turned to alcohol and drugs to take away the fear, to settle me down, to continue to give me confidence. And all the while I was chipping away at myself. Weaker and weaker and weaker I became. The roots of my being were surface level, and any storm that came knocked me over. Boom, I wasn't able to deal with it. And what did I do? I used and drank again to try and build me up. And the cycle continued and the cycle continued. But what this program does is takes me back to the original self. It takes me to understand what my purpose in life is. It takes me to understand. There's somebody laughing on my screen right now, and I often wonder what people think when I'm talking like this. And what I have to do is to set aside every single thing I think I know to continue to have an experience with God. If anybody is here not liking what I'm saying, that's okay. But what I'm here to do is to try and give you an experience of this big book in order for you to have a new experience with your God and perhaps help somebody else. What this program has enabled me to do is for my roots to get strong, for my trunk and my core to be strong, so that no matter what later vicissitude, like it talks about in step 2, comes my way, I can handle it with the grace of God. I have strength, direction, superhuman love and power that no matter who's laughing at me on the screen, it doesn't affect me. Whoever has doubt and prejudice against what I'm saying, it doesn't affect me, because I know I'm here to do God's work well. I'm here to do what I need to do to help the other alcoholic. That's all my purpose is in life, like it outlines on page 89. My only thing here is to be helpful. It's as simple as that. It's important at this point for people to understand that through this program, your roots will grasp a new soil. And they will grow deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, like the relationship with your power that is greater than you. That's going to be your experience. And it's a cast iron guarantee that that will be your experience. Having said all of that, at this next paragraph, because it's really important, having said all of that, despite the living example of my friend, so despite everything that I'm saying to you over this kitchen table, there remained in me the vestiges of my old prejudice. Irrespective of what I've said, you might be sitting here with your own doubt and prejudice, which is stopping you from having the new experience with God. So laugh, because that's okay. Because the beauty of this is I can set aside all of my own vestiges and all of my own prejudice, because that's just what we do. You may be the person here that's sitting thinking the word God still arouses a certain antipathy in you, a dislike for God. You might be sitting here with a dislike for God. That's okay at this stage. That's okay. When the thought was expressed that there might be a God personal to me, the feeling was intensified. I didn't like the idea. You might not like the idea about the God of your own understanding, because you might be sitting here thinking, oh my God, what does that mean? Because you're thinking about the God that you were brought up with as a child. You know, I was raised in schools that was run by nuns. I ended up in a treatment facility that was run by nuns. Can you imagine the intensity of what I thought when they started to talk to me about the God of their own understanding? But then Bill talks about some of the things that he could think about. I could go for such conceptions as creative intelligence, another word for God, universal mind, another word for God, or spirit of nature, another word for God. You could go with all of those things and ask yourself right now, what do all of those words mean to you? What does creative intelligence bring to your mind? Isn't that a beautiful thing for the God of your own understanding? Spirit of nature, what a powerful word for God. What does it mean to you? But I resisted the thought of a czar of the heavens, however his loving sway may be. I would resist the czar of the heavens. That's not the God of my understanding today whilst I'm reading this. That raises all sorts of dislike in me. But that might change going forward when I read it tomorrow with another sponsee. Who knows? I have since talked with scores of men who felt the same way. Bill W. is saying here, in all of his journey and everything that he did with people that he took through the program and brought them to this way of living, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that I have worked with through this program that have felt the same way. I don't like this God thing. It raises the antipathy. They dislike the word God in any way, shape or form. At this point, it's okay. Because he goes on to say, at this point, all that is required. My friend suggested what then seemed a novel idea. He said, why don't you choose your own conception of God? Italicized. It's important. Why don't you choose your own conception of God? How about that? But of course, you might be sitting here thinking the same as Bill. That statement hit me hard. It melted away the icy intellectual mountain in whose shadow I had lived and shivered many years. Visualize this. This is one of those close your eyes moments. I stood in the sunlight at last. Feel that heat. The sun is so bright, even with your eyes closed, you can see it. That sounds ridiculous, but you know those moments when you close your eyes and you can feel the sun? What happens through this process is that I come into the rooms. I've got this big mountain in front of me. How on earth am I going to live my life without the stuff that's the solution for me right now, which is my using and my drinking? How am I going to climb this mountain of life without the stuff that is my solution? How am I going to get to the point where all these lot are talking about this way of living, the 12 steps, action, sponsorship, being of service, being helpful? How am I going to climb that mountain? How am I going to do it? And the mountain is packed with snow on top of it, so it's even higher than I can even imagine. How am I going to get there? But little by little, what happens as we show up with our sponsor, as we keep on turning the pages, as we keep on letting the book do the work, the icy intellectual mountaintop, the icy intellectualism that I had inside me, which I had to set aside, begins ever so gently to melt away and trickle down the side of that mountain. And genuinely, you stand in that sunlight. And you stand in that sunlight every single day of your life, if you choose to. Because at any given moment of the day, I can choose to snap out of this. At any given moment, I can choose to drop into the awareness of this power that is greater than me. More often than not, I choose to stand in the sunlight. What's the point in standing in the shade? It's no way to live. Because here's the thing. All that is required right now, italicize, because it's important. Whether you believe in a God or don't believe in a God, at this moment, listen to this. It was only a matter of being willing to believe in a power greater than yourself. Nothing, I emphasize that word, nothing more was required of me to make my beginning. That's where it starts. Willingness. And what happens with that willingness? I saw that growth could start from that point. How simple is that? It's no more complicated. Are you willing? Because if you are, happy days. You're on the right path. Upon a foundation of complete willingness, I might build. You might start to construct what I saw in my friend. Would I have it? Of course I would. Would you have what Laws has? Would you have what Julian has? I don't know anybody else really in this room. Would you have what they have? Absolutely. I want what they have. Absolutely, I want to stand in the sunlight of the Spirit. Am I willing to do this? Absolutely, I'm willing. Because the desperation of the thing that was killing me, that was my solution, brought me to the point of willingness. And you might be thinking, well, you might not have the willingness. A friend of mine always says, though, but are you willing to be willing? Well, I don't really know. Well, are you willing to be willing to be willing? And he would just keep going on and on and on. Well, the point that he was trying to make is that's all it needs to be. Are you willing to keep showing up and turning the pages? Yeah, well, that's great. That's all we've got to do right now. Let the book do the work. At this point, you don't need to know Bill's antics and all of that. You just need to identify with what he's saying in this chapter. And here it goes on, my goodness me. Thus was I convinced. In the book, the word convinced means to be moved by the evidence. So what he's saying here is that thus I was moved by the evidence from his friend Ebbe that God is concerned with us humans when we want him enough. When we want him enough. God is always there. Changeless. Limitless. It's when we want him and are willing to search and find and seek and keep. At long last, I saw. At long last, I felt. At long last, I believed. Nothing to do with anybody else in this room about what I'm doing. It's your experience. Scales of pride and prejudice fell from my eyes. A new world comes in to view. Isn't that amazing? When I am able to set aside every single thing I think I know any given second of the day, a new world always comes into view. Another perspective is able to get in. And this program enables us to do that more and more and more and more as we take the rest of the action that is required. This is why Bill's story is so incredibly important, to bring to life the extent of what this program actually is. He then goes back to this experience that he had at the beginning of the chapter when he was in Winchester. The real significance of my experience in the cathedral burst upon me. Back then, for a brief moment, I had needed and wanted God. Ask yourself, when were all those times in your life up to this point where you needed and wanted God? It might even be today. I know I need God. I know I want God, but you don't know what to do about it. And in those times where you needed and wanted God, there had been a humble willingness to have him with me. A willingness in you at that moment in your life to have him with you. I've got the willingness today, every day, to have him with me. And guess what? He came. Every single time I'm willing, he comes. You might not feel like that right now because you've not had this experience yet. But if you have the willingness, he will come. But this is what happens. But soon the sense of his presence had been blotted out by worldly clamours, all of the external stuff, mostly those within myself. It's me that snaps myself off from the sunlight of the Spirit. I close my mind. I become unwilling. I become dishonest. And through all of that, I don't feel the presence of God. I don't hear the direction. But he is changeless and limitless and is always there. And so it had been ever since, how blind I had been. Basically what he's saying there, but in the worldly clamours, my mind snaps shut, that's it. But whenever he's opened his mind and willing and honest to think about this power greater than himself, something else happens. Something else comes in. At the hospital, I was separated from alcohol for the last time. Notice that. The last time. It doesn't say 1 day at a time. It doesn't say 1 day at a time anywhere in the 164 pages. The alcohol was removed for the last time, the 11th of December, 1934. We live our life 1 day at a time. Absolutely we do. That's what our daily reprieve is. No doubt about that. Doesn't say here that he's fighting alcohol 1 day at a time. No, last time, removed. Treatment seemed wise for I showed signs of delirium tremors. Yeah, if that's what's going to happen, you need medical assistance, then go. Get the medical assistance. Get to rehab. Do whatever you've got to do, but it doesn't replace the fact that you still need to do this work. Here, I'm going to do these next 3 paragraphs because it's important. And these next 3 paragraphs are a summary of the rest of the steps. Okay? I'm only going to take you to step 11 because next week we're going to focus on step 12. So here, you might recognize some of this language if you've already done it, this steps before. But here we are in step 3, moving into step 4. There, I humbly offered myself to God. You know that 3rd step prayer? Humbly offered myself to you. As I then understood him. So he's saying what he understood God to be now. The God that I understand when I first came into the fellowship is completely different to the God that I have now. It's ever changing. The relationship is ever changing, ever growing. It's the most beautiful thing. So he humbly offered himself to God as they then understood him to do with me. This is a partnership. To do with me as he would. I place myself unreservedly under his care and direction. 3rd step, decision. I admitted for the first time that of myself I was nothing, and without him I was lost. Moving into 4, I ruthlessly faced my sins, fears and thorough moral inventory of myself, and became willing to have my newfound friend. Notice that is capitalized, another word for God. God is my best friend. No, I've never got a friend like him. Tells me the truth every single time. It doesn't hold back. In a very nice way. So I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have my newfound friend take them away. Not just help me with them. Take them away. Root and branch. And he's not had a drink since. He's not fighting alcohol 1 day at a time. Okay, so we went into that fearless and thorough moral inventory of himself. Did everything that he needed to do. He's moving into his step 5 experience, talking to his friends. My schoolmate visited me and I fully acquainted him with my problems and deficiencies. Step 5 into step 6 and 7, we made a list of people I had hurt or toward whom I felt resentment. That's your step 8 list, making the list. Your problems and deficiencies, your shortcomings and your defects of character in 6 and 7. Again, I expressed my entire willingness to approach these individuals, admitting my wrong, into step 9. Never was I to be critical of them. I was to right all such matters to the utmost of my ability. And now we're moving into step 10 and 11. I was to test my thinking, an important word, because it's no longer about our drinking and using. When we get to step 10, it's about our thinking. I was to test my thinking by the new God consciousness within. Common sense would thus become uncommon sense. I'll explain that when we get to step 10. We have this new way of thinking where common sense would become uncommon sense. Might not mean anything right now, but it doesn't need to because we grow where we're planted in the book. Step 11, listen to this. This blows me away every single time. I was to sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction and strength to meet my problems as he would have me. Never was I to pray for myself, except as my request on my usefulness to others. People say sometimes in the rooms here where I live, we don't pray for ourselves, Well, that's not right. That's not what it's saying here. I pray for myself all the time, to be able to be useful to others. And this is the mega bit that blows me away. Then only might I expect to receive. And that would be in great measure. That's what happens through this process. When I sit quietly, asking only for direction as to how I can be useful to others, I receive direction in abundance. I receive direction non-stop in great measure. So that's us up to step 11 in Bill's personal story. That's my personal story too. This is what I've experienced through this program is what he has described. Not exactly the same circumstances. Every circumstance is unique and exceptional. It's your story. But I receive in great measure every single time from this program. And we're going to step 12 next week. I'll leave it at that, Julia and Stephanie. Thank you so much.